and welcome to First Days with Johanna. I'm Johanna. I'm the creator behind SKeW Yarns and Designs, and First Days with Johanna is my little space where I share everything that has happened the last week, preferably. Or in this case, I will share all of my socks works in progress, not projects, works in progress with you. And that was quite a number when I picked them all together. So here in First Days with Johanna, we go through different stages of my creative process, and I will show you what I'm working on and come up with some tips and tricks for you. So I hope you will join me in the next episode too. So please press subscribe to make sure you get all the notifications that you can from this channel. Now, let's get started. Last week, I showed you my latest design, a lace shawl called Dare to Dream. And I'm so very thankful for each and every one of you who have purchased the pattern and sent very kind notes about it and saying that it's beautiful and everything. I'm really thankful, and yeah, the pattern is still available, of course. So if you missed it, you can still have your go with this pattern, and yeah, I will link it below, the same as everything I talk about in this video. So this is my latest design, Dare to Dream shawl. But now we won't talk any more lace in this episode. We will talk about socks. So, socks. You know already that I have an addiction for it, but I didn't quite know how many whips I had until I picked them all together. So how many do I have? Well, I put them in this basket, except for the one that is on my circular sock machine. And I'm kind of hesitant if I want to count that one in because it's not really hand knitting. But if my daughter allows it, I will take a video of it too, so you can see what I'm working on there. But here is a big basket of all of my sock whips. So some I can show a little bit more on and talk a little bit more, and some will only be a short passage, because that's the way it is. Sometimes I knit on secret things too. And the most secretive thing is in here. This is a test knit for another Swedish designer, and I can't really say anything else. Then it will show up really soon, and when I can share it with you, I will share more with you. It's a really pretty design, and I'm so very happy that she wanted me to test knit. This will turn out to be a pair of socks for my husband, so I'm actually knitting the largest size, and this definitely needs to get some attention during Easter. So this will be my main project during this weekend when we have Easter holiday here. And yeah, that's all I can say at the moment. Sorry, you only get to see this pretty little bag that I kind of forgot who made, but it's very old and very pretty. That was my first. Now we go into number 2. And this sock is something that I've been working on during fairs. So I started this one when it was the Christmas market in Buchekloster. I started it and knitted a toe, and now we have had another fair, so it's grown a little bit. I have some traveling stitches going up the side here, and this will grow up to be a pair of socks for my son. And yeah, they're worked in SKeW Yarns number 2 in the colorway Mint Choklad. So minty chocolate it is. This one broke the brown color a little bit more than intended, so it's a little bit more marred with some grays and some reddish browns. Normally it will be a darker brown going around over it all, but that's the way it happens sometimes. So I thought I'd cast them on and knit a pair of socks for my son with them. I'm working them magic loop one at a time with my Shawl needles, and the size is 2.25 millimeters, just my normal sock size. That is the way normally that I prefer to knit my socks, is one at a time, magic loop. But you also know that I experiment a lot with how I knit my socks, and different ways to do them, and different ways to cast on and to do the toe and everything. So I'm quite an experimental sock knitter, maybe. Still have a lot of things to try out before I'm feeling like I've done it all. I haven't still. So, but in this case, I followed my normal recipe, and it will be a fleagle heel going in there because that is something that I prefer to do, especially for my son because he wears his feet very well. So that one got a little bit of attention this weekend, and now it will be back on the back burner until next fair, maybe, if I don't have anything else to work on then. Then we have project number 3, and this is actually my first cranked tube on my circular sock machine. I've picked up some stitches here, and I'm slowly working on some ribbing. I've done like 2 rounds, I think. So not very much, but I will do some ribbing here, and I will measure out where I need to divide it for the toe, and then measure out from the toe where I need to put in the heel. So this is the first step, and this is actually one of a kind, or a lucky colorway, like I'm calling them. This is a lucky colorway, and yeah, I like it a lot, but I can't really seem to recreate it. I've tried and failed like 3 times, and I can't remember what I put in there. So yeah, we will see if I manage to do it again, but this was a very good learning experience on the circular sock machine. I have some different tension going on here, and it was, yeah, at the end it was better. But it's a learning process on the circular sock machine too, and this is something that only get attention for a very short amount of time, it seems. But it's living in here in my little sheep bag, and it will come out when I have the time for it. So that's 3 projects. And then we have the one that I've actually worked a lot on since last time you saw it, and that is my I only know the yarn. I haven't really called this socks anything, but in this case I'm doing a lot of things different than what I normally prefer. So I'm knitting them cuff down on a 9-inch circular. So this is a very short circular that you can use for sock knitting. And when you use this kind of needle, you need to like hold on with your fingers, so you can't really hold the yarn and the needles the same way as you used to do when you have the longer needles to work with. So it's a little bit of a process. I enjoy it from time to time, but I can't really knit for very long stretches of time with this kind of needle. But I know some people that really loves them and knit their socks just zooming along, as they say. And not really zooming on this ones because they've been on the needle since the fall, and now I'm feeling like I really want to have them done. So I managed to put in the last piece of the gusset, the entire heel, and working about half the way on the foot. And then when I get to the toe, it will be on magic loop or DPNs, so that I can actually decrease them down, because you can't do that on the really short circular, because there is no way to go around when the circumference is getting too small. So the toe is the thing that you can't really do on a small circular needle. I managed to do the entire heel because I didn't pick up any stitches on this heel. This is basically the Flegel heel, but from the cuff down, and that is called the strong heel. And yeah, you increase down so there aren't any real heel flap, and then you do a heel turn underneath. The yarn here is from Wool Kitchen, and she's UK based, and she has some really pretty yarns in her shop at the moment. And I'm kind of feeling the itch to get some more, because I really love this pop of color that she has on the yarn. And this colorway is called Cosmic Girl, and in her BFL Bamboo. So this is really a test for me to see if the bamboo can hold up the way I want it to do, and to see if this could be an alternative to nylon in the socks. But for the moment I haven't found any non-superwash, so this is a superwash yarn. So it's a give and take here at the moment. And yeah, it's also living in a small sock cube here with feathers on it, and I have this bag for years and years, and I know it's the same person who sewed this, but since there aren't any labels, I can't really tell any longer. I'm so sorry, but I really adore them, and it's so good because I can put this one on my wrist and I can knit from it. So during the fair last weekend, this project lived in this bag, and I'll put it on my wrist and I knit happily away with the yarn going on in my small cube bag here. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4 projects. I have 3 more to show you. So this one hasn't really started yet, but it's the same way. It's a tube that I cranked on the circular sock machine. This colorway is a Regia yarn from the Arne and Carlos line. And I've forgotten the colorway number, but I will put it down here. And I cranked this tube. This yarn was a leftover yarn from my husband's socks. So I cranked the tube that I can turn into a pair of socks for myself. And still needs a little bit of work. It's not even connected to some needles at the moment. So I think I need to finish off the first one that I have and then move on to this one. Slowly. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, I know. And now I will get a lot of new pair of socks for the fall. But yeah, I really enjoy to work on socks during the summertime because it's small and portable and it's easy to just grab and go. So that's my preferred one. This ball of yarn you've seen before. I even have some needles in it. I swatched with the DPNs, and why swatch for a pair of socks, you might ask? Well, I haven't knitted with DPNs in a very long time, and I wanted to see if my gauge were correct and do some calculations so that I know that a pair of socks will fit me. And this yarn is from a homespun house from one of her club colorways. So it's not available any longer, but she dyes the most beautiful sock yarn. And she's back in Europe again, so she's based in Berlin. And that means that you can actually get a hold of her sock yarn a little bit less expensive than shipping from US. I really enjoyed working with it, and I can't wait to cast this one on. I just need to power through a pair of socks before this one gets on my needles, I think. And this one will be worked with the DP ends, so that's why the DP ends are stuck into this ball of yarn. And yeah, let's see what I will do with it once I cast it on. Now, for the last project, I will make a total of 7. This is the 7th sock project, plus the one on my circular sock machine. This one is just a swatch at the moment still. This is the swatch for my Estonian sock. It's a traditional pattern going on up here, and then I've done some traveling stitches, or like twisted stitches on here that will go down on the heel, or on the side of the heel actually, and then further down on the foot. And this sock starts with a lace border or lace ribbing, and then it works on to color work, and then some twisted stitches or traveling stitches. So this is a project that will get some attention during summer and springtime, because I'm aiming for a pattern coming out in August on this one. So there will be a lot of sock knitting happening on my front during the summer. This sock is worked with a pure wool yarn, and it won't hold the absolute best it can, for sure. I know, I've tried it out, and I really enjoy the feeling of the sock. I really enjoy wearing it, and maybe that's the problem. I've worn it too much, so I think that I actually need to reinforce it somehow under the foot where I know I have the greatest wear. I really like that this is a non-superwash yarn, and that is woolly and nice. And some people can use it for socks without any reinforcement, but I'm not one of them, unfortunately. This yarn is the Rauma 2-ply Gammel-serie, and it's supposed to be a little bit harder twisted, so it will be better than, for example, Rauma Finul or any other pure wool yarn. But I still need to reinforce it a little bit under some parts of my foot that tends to wear a lot quicker than other places. So that is something that I need to figure out how I should do, and before I continue on with this one. But I really enjoyed swatching, and I really enjoyed working with the colors, and then I need to make sure that the foot will last too, because that is something that I feel is really important if you put down a lot of work in your sock. And yeah, this is the yarn that is traditionally used for socks. Then it's just a pure wool yarn, but I think actually that this is a little bit softer fibers and not as coarse as it would have been historically, and that is why we tend to wear through pure wool socks much quicker now than we did before. But I'm not saying that you need to go back to real coarse fibers and do everything historically correct. So that's why I'm debating if I can use the pure wool yarn for the leg of the foot, and then once moving down to the foot of the sock, then maybe switch out to a commercial or a sock yarn with nylon or something like that. I can still use this white undyed color and just go ahead with a sock yarn instead. So a lot of debating going on within me about this sock. And then hopefully it will be a pattern coming out later this year. So that was all of my sock projects. The yarn I'm working with on my sock machine and for this pair of socks is the sock yarn that I carry in my shop. And that sock yarn is called number 2. That is 80% Corriedale and 20% nylon. And it's a non-superwash yarn. And non-superwash means that you haven't taken away the natural qualities of the yarn or the fiber. You still have the heat regulation, you still have that they wick away moisture and that they provide warmth even if they are wet. Now, how will you know if you have a superwash yarn or a non-superwash yarn? A quick trick is to place the yarn or fill a bucket or something with water and place the yarn on top of that water. If it sinks or if it fills up really quick with water, that is superwash. And if it just sits on top and don't really want to be pressed down, the water kind of pearls and not really want to go into the fiber, that is a non-superwash yarn. That is a very easy way to tell if something is superwash or not. And that also tells you a lot of the natural qualities of the yarn. So non-superwash, it resists moisture, which means that you can wear it as an outer jacket even if it's kind of foggy or you have kind of a light rain almost, and it won't take on that wetness. So that is why one of the reasons I prefer a non-superwash yarn. Then of course it's more environmental friendly because you don't coat the yarn with plastics, which is the superwash process in most cases. And otherwise they use chemicals to actually kind of almost burn away the scales on the fiber, because the scales are actually the one that hooks and make the yarn or the fiber felt. So they remove those scales chemically, and that is not the kindest process for the environment. So for me, I find it for me personally, I really, really like non-superwash yarn for many reasons. But I still find use for superwash yarn. I still have them, I still wear them, and especially for socks. Because when you have socks with a non-superwash yarn and you wear them in shoes, they tend to felt a bit. So either you need to account for that in some cases, or you can use superwash yarn instead, and that will mean that you don't get any felting in your sock yarn. But I find that my sock yarn wears just equally good as any superwash sock yarn. So it's not because of the wear, it's just because of felting. And that can be something that can disturb some people, and especially if you are very tough on your socks. Now, for my sock yarn number 2, this is a non-superwash sock yarn with nylon. So the nylon helps the yarn to last longer. It won't get worn thin that rapid when you have nylon in it. As I said with my Estonian sock, that that one is pure wool, and unfortunately I tend to wear through it a little bit too quick to find it satisfying. Can I say yeah? I think that is something that needs to be accounted for too. So my sock yarn number 2, most of the hanks come in 100-gram hanks, but just before the fair, I dyed up 2 new colorways, and they are available in 50-gram skeins. So this is the Dive colorway. Lots of different blues and some green in there. So this one is called Dive, and a customer on the fair actually bought this one to make a shawl called like pool drops or something. She wanted to have a colorway that was kind of this pool filled with water where you can see a little bit of shifts and some mosaic and stuff like that. And when she saw this colorway, she knew that this was just right. It had this kind of summery shifts with the gray coming through and still some blues, or the green coming through, and still a lot of blues in there. So yeah, I named it Dive because I think of diving in like this faraway water with all turquoise and glittery and stuff like that. There is no glitter in the yarn, but I just imagine it. So that was the first colorway that I dyed up just before the fair. And then we have the second colorway. This one is called Use, and it kind of reminds me on the flame of a candle burning and some red speckles going on there together with this golden honey yellow and some white. This one is also available on the 50-gram skeins and not on 100-gram. So this one is called Use, which means light. So that is the 2 new colorways that will be in the shop, and both of them on 50-gram skeins, not 100-gram skeins. And that is together with all of the other colorways that I have. And I have one more colorway going up on 50-gram skeins, and that is this one. Let's see if we can undo the zip tie so you can see it. So there is one more colorway on the 50-gram skeins, and this is Havsfru, which means like Lady of the Lake or Lady of the Sea, and a little bit of teal and magenta and some gray in there, reminding me of fishy scales or something like that. So Havsfru is also available in 50-gram skeins. The rest of the sock yarn in the shop are on 100-gram skeins. So a 100-gram skein will last you for a pair of socks up to like 48-ish, depending on how long leg you do on the socks. A 50-gram skein will be enough up to like size 34, maybe. Then you will need to either do an accent color of something else or have 2 skeins to make a pair of socks. There will be accent colors added on to the shop later on, but at this point of time there are these 3 colorways going up. That was all of my sock projects, and as I said, I do my socks in very different ways, different kind of needles, different kind of things, and I want to explore more and more. So I hope that you will join me for my next sock chat, maybe. when I hopefully can share a little bit more. And until then, have a great Easter if you're watching this now, and otherwise have a great week, and I will see you next Thursday. Happy knitting. Bye.